Welcome to my second video on configuring the Bravo throttle quadrant for the ATR 4272. If you haven't watched my first video, I strongly recommend that you do so, as we'll be picking up from that profile, links in the notes below. The developers in their wisdom have changed the bindings in the recent update, resulting in everything being the same except reverse thrust. This has changed. I've spent some considerable time trying to resolve various issues, with only partial success, and none of my proposed solutions are perfect, but they will get you up and running with reverse thrust. If you're not using the Bravo throttle quadrant, well, this may assist you as well. Welcome to the Sim Hanger. My name's Mark. Thank you very much for watching, and let's get started with a quick word from this video's sponsor. flightsimbuilder is an American-based company that provides navigational units such as the GNS 530 and 430 and G1000 for use with X-Plane and Microsoft Flight Simulator. I have personally used these items and recommend them. If you'd like to know more, check out my videos, link in the notes below. These flight sim peripherals allow you to take advantage of the pop-out panels available. In the case of Microsoft Flight Simulator, it auto-configures, and anything you can do in Sim, you can do with these units, and provides great tactile feedback, including twin rotary dials and push buttons, very reasonably priced in comparison to the competition. Link to flightsimbuilder's website in the notes below. So let's kick off. I'm not going to run through all the details or all the options because this video would then be 45-50 minutes long. I'm going to cover off the basics and then leave you to explore various options with the commercial handles, etc., etc. So let's start, and we're going to the preset manager and we're going to duplicate the ATR profile so we don't have to enter in all the stuff we've already done. We just want to make various changes. If you wanted to, of course, you could just modify the existing profile. I'm going to call mine ATR2. Make sure it's the active profile under the Bravo throttle quadrant, and now we can start. Now the change that has been made is the ATR now requires the toggle throttle reverse thrust function in order to get reverses working. The problem with that, for those with the Bravo throttle quadrant, is the Bravo throttle quadrant doesn't play very nicely with this function. The throttle 1 and throttle 2 decrease won't work, so let's delete those first off. Clear current input and validate. And throttle 1 decrease, we'll get rid of that as well. Okay, so we can now go back to new or all and toggle reverse thrust. We need to put that in, so I'm going to start scanning, and then I'm going to take throttle 1 and move it into the detent and back out again, and I'm going to validate. But I've got two throttles, not one. So in the second box here, I'm going to click here, scan again, throttle 2 into the detent and back out again, and validate. So both of these will now toggle into reverse. And here's the big difference. With the toggle reverse thrust option, we don't want to decrease because we're in the negative or reverse. We want to increase. So for throttle 1, we're not looking for throttle 1 decrease. We're looking for throttle 1 increase. I'm going to start scanning, move throttle 1 into the detent and back out again. It comes up and says you've already got toggle throttle reverse thrust and throttle cut. We know that. We're still going to go ahead and validate. And for throttle 2, we're going to select increase into the detent for throttle 2. And we're going to validate. Can now change my filter back to assigned, and we can see now we have throttle reverse thrust, the toggle for both axes, throttle 2 increase, throttle 1 increase. Those are the principal differences. Let's see how it works or if it works. Apply and save, and let's head back. And we're now in our ATR. Currently, we still have normal range of movement for our forward thrust, max, ramp, and so on. Just let the engine spool down a little bit. So now if we move our throttles into reverse, we should see the levers lift and we should go into reverse. So let's try that. Levers have lifted. Note the vibration there. And now after some time they move back and we're now in full reverse. Oops, there we go. So that shows you we're in full reverse. Now to come out, we need to move to throttle cut and hold it there. And you can hear the engine spooling down, and we've now got our normal forward thrust and so on. That vibration there is not very realistic. We're almost at full reverse thrust by the time the levers physically move back down. We're now coming back down, but I moved my thrust levers out of detent fairly quickly. And if you note, they're still in reverse. So even if I move them forward, they're going to move back. I need to, once again, get into that throttle cut position. Reverse is engaged, disengaged, and so on. So it's not fantastic. What is happening is we are pressing the button because the detent is simply a button, but it's not a single press. It's not an on and off. It continues to be pressed and it continues to send signals. Only so many messages per second or feeds through to the sim that can take place at one time. And that's why the throttle reverse thrust doesn't work very well with the Bravo, because the buttons remain pressed and continue to send those instructions on an ongoing basis. So that's not ideal. The best solution that I've been able to find, you may be happy to live with that, but the best solution is to change the thrust instruction actually to a button. And that eliminates a lot of the problems that you may have. And you'll also find that going into reverse and then coming back out again, if you do it very quickly, can be a bit hit and miss. So what we can do is change it to a button, and we can do that by simply deleting that and deleting that. Now the most obvious button that we can find would be our toga button. You could of course configure it to any button that you wanted, but in this case I'm going to be using the toga button. I can change my filter back, toggle throttle reverse thrust. I'm now just going to press this button. Comes up as joystick button number 9 and validate. So the only change we've made is here. Everything else has remained exactly the same, but now we've got this to a button, and this is a simple on and off button function. Apply and save, go back and resume. Now one of the options that you may be thinking about is, well, can't we configure that on the commercial handles to this function here? So we could have toggle reverse thrust and thrust increase. This again, it does work in that configuration, but it's not ideal because again, that button remains pressed. It's not an on and off, and there's conflicting signals, and coming out of reverse thrust is problematic. Okay, so we're back in the cockpit. Let's give it a go. So let's press the button. We can see the two levers automatically lift up. Our levers go down, move us into reverse. Press the button again and move back to the idle position. We've now got forward thrust. So that's the best I've been able to come up with so far. The configuration works most of the time, but occasionally it doesn't go into full reverse, so just be conscious of that when landing. I'd also note, I'm not sure if it's a bug with the aircraft or the sim, but on occasions I had to restart my flight after doing multiple configuration changes as they didn't seem to stick. I simply restarted the flight and then they were okay. But if nothing else, this will help you get on with your configuration, and hopefully somebody will come up with a better solution than this. As always, thank you very much for your time. I hope you found it useful and not too long-winded. Stay well, take care, I'll see you again very soon, and bye for now.